Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Roker Report podcast in association with the Southern Community Soup Kitchen. It's Gav back again. You've probably got sick of hearing my voice this week, but nevertheless we're back to chat a little bit. Just a quick one. After the transfer window closed, it wasn't an eventful deadline day for Sunderland, but it doesn't matter, we're still going to talk about it. And joining me today is Craig Chapman. Hiya mate.
It was a quiet one, but I think nothing will ever live up to the hype of having Wee Philly stood outside of the Academy of Light while talking to Jermaine Defoe. So it was always going to underwhelm after that one, I'm afraid.
Yeah, we kept ourselves busy over on Roker Report. We did the live Twitter space, which went on from 8 till 11, and we never ran out of things to talk about, and people stuck around for that. So that's a little plug for that. If you want to go back and listen to our live stream, stick that on Twitter. But there wasn't a great deal that went on. The only bit of business which affected Sunderland was Carl Winchester going out to Shrewsbury Town. We were talking on the live stream about the possibility of him staying, and sort of I was coming around the idea that maybe keeping him was a good idea because, you know, he can play right back, he can play centre mid, he can play centre half, and we heard recently, didn't we, that Carl Winchester has a brilliant influence on the rest of the players in the dressing room, and he's just about the place. Everybody gets on with him, and I think that was reflected in some of the reaction to the departure by some of his teammates. I think Lyndon Gooch tweeted about it. So he will be a miss, won't he? But I think the top and bottom of it was, and it was made clear in the statement when he left with Christian Speakman's words, was that Carl Winchester at his age needs to be playing games. It's fair enough, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And you are right that he is a very popular character amongst fans, amongst players alike as well. But I think the realisation, of course, of getting promoted is ultimately there is going to be an uplift and an increase in standards along the way. So although that Carl Winchester done a really good job last year in terms of his versatility across multiple positions, it is sad that essentially people like him may not eventually cut the grade at the level that we're aspiring to be at. But like I say, he goes with everyone's best wishes. I think the only surprise for me, in all honesty, is I think he can do a little bit better than Shrewsbury Town. That's no disrespect to him. I mean,
that. Yeah.
It's just they're currently sort of towards the bottom of the division. And although, to be fair, look, the league normally takes shape after, 10, 15, 20 games perhaps. But I don't know. I just think in terms of how influential he was for us and obviously how, you know, committed to the cause, you always knew what you got with him. It was full blood, guts and thunder. And to be fair, I think he could easily play in the middle of the pack in League One or further up for a team who's competing for promotion. But I mean, like I say, nevertheless, wish him the very best of luck. Met him on a couple of occasions, and I think he's just a really, really nice lad. We've gone through a phase of having a lot of unlikable footballers at the club, but you know, by God, he was polar opposites, and came in. He was an unexpected arrival. Obviously, when we brought him in, a lot of people have probably thought, "Who on earth is he?" But to be fair, he'd done himself proud. And like I say, it's sad to see him go, but it's just ultimately the direction we're in at the moment that we are going to be looking subsequently to replace players as we continue to climb.
Yeah, last time I saw him, he was eating a Greek gyros down the quayside a couple of weeks ago. So that was my last sighting of Carl Winchester anywhere near Sunderland, I guess. But I'm sort of sad to see him leave, and you know, he goes with our best wishes. He certainly didn't let us down, did he? We were talking about it a little bit last night about his sort of the way he arrived. I remember when he came, and nobody really knew who he was. He came out of left field, didn't he? And he only ever really played in the lower leagues. And I mean, I think he's 29 now, but when we signed him, he was he'll have been 27 or 28 when we signed him, and it was just a bit of a strange one for us. But he came with lots of hype from his other clubs. I think Forest Green fans absolutely loved him. And I remember Lee Johnson, I think, talking about Carl Winchester and saying, you know, he's always been quality, but he's never had that big move. And he landed at Sunderland, obviously through a bit. I presume it was the Lee Johnson thing. You know, he'd worked with him before, and the gist of it was that he loved playing for Sunderland. He probably at that stage never expected to play for a club like Sunderland in front of as many fans as he did. You know, created some unbelievable memories. So, you know, it's easy to see why he was probably such a popular figure, because he was probably coming into work every day and thinking, you know, I've gone from Oldham and Forest Green to this. You know, I can't believe me luck.
I think with players like him as well as they really have sort of grasped at the opportunity when they've come here. You know, they haven't let themselves down. at times, perhaps if the performance hasn't been great, you've never got less than 100% out of somebody like him. And yeah, like I say, perhaps the Lee Johnson influence was obviously something that brought him here, because none of us really knew who he was, and you can't maybe imagine that he was on the eyes of the recruitment team at that time. But I guess that again goes back to Lee Johnson as well. Like he always had this idea of bringing the right characters to the club. May not always be the best players, but you can't kind of underestimate just how important it is to have players like Carl Winchester around. And when they do go, and you do see the reaction of some of the players and just how sad they are about it. But like I say, he'll be a big loss in terms of his character, but I think it is just unfortunately the way we're going now.
Yeah, it was made very clear to us early in the evening, wasn't it, that we weren't going to do any business. I think around about 6 o'clock, 6:30, I guess it must have been briefed to the press that we weren't going to sign anybody else. So, it was on BBC Newcastle. I think a couple of local journalists tweeted about it and stuff. Were you surprised we did no more business on the final day? Was it a case of, we already had brought in enough? Or I think Tony Mowbray had said, hadn't he, they were still going to try up until the end, but I'm guessing a few things just fell through.
Yeah, I think, look, overall in the main, I'm happy with what we've done, not just in terms of incomings, but I think retaining what we had as well. And most importantly, we've done that while sticking to the recruitment plan. There's been no sort of daft curveballs this window by bringing back somebody who we shouldn't. We haven't broke the bank or the wage structure. But ultimately, I do feel that we are still light in some areas. I think if we were to lose, say, Dennis Serkin, for example, that's going to give us a bit of a headache, and we're likely going to need to change shape. Now, I think although we've got a lot of options in midfield now, but for me, ultimately, it's Corey Evans in the holding role that I'm starting to worry about if he's to get injured, because the young lads are fine. The common complaint so far this season is that when we've run out of steam, there's been no like-for-like alternative on the bench. So you would hope with the young lads that we've brought in, already alongside, say, Neil and Matete, they can complement each other, can maintain that high tempo, and enable us to move the ball around as quickly as we can. But I think if Evans goes, and not having that like-for-like replacement, I think in all honesty, over the course of the season so far, I know we're only a handful of games in, but he's honestly becoming more and more one of our most important players. If you think back to the game against Rotherham in April, we got overrun and bullied all night, and we only scraped a point in the end. It was fairly fortunate, but again, it was just chalk and cheese the other night, and just how important he is for us. Like I say, I don't think we can underestimate just even taking him out the team against Sheffield United as well. We did look fairly light. Beyond that, I think really I would have liked another striker to come in, but even Alex Neil kind of suggested this. The difficulty I think that you're going to have is it's always going to be a tough sell to any striker to say, come and take, say, Ross Stewart's spot. You're going to come in and you're just going to be feeding on scraps. Beyond that, I think we're okay, but it's those key areas really. I think that if one player was to go down, that we might have a bit of an issue. But what we were talking about just before we sat recording is, of course, is that we only have 2 months to get to the World Cup. At that point, we've got a 4 or 5 week window where we can kind of reassess our options and then plan ahead for January. But I think we've got enough now to get us through that period.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we do. I think obviously the form of a couple of different players has probably helped. So, I know what you're going to get with Luke O'Nien, but he's actually been brilliant in that right centre-half role. And that's probably eased some of their concerns about having to bring in somebody who can play until Dan Ballard's back, and you've got to think about it logically. I mean, how long has he got left out? Like maybe 5 weeks, something like that, 6 weeks. It's not a massive amount of time. Yes, there's a lot of games to play in that time, but he'll be back before you know it. And what I keep thinking is like it's the way that they're doing it. So they've obviously got in their mind that they want a certain profile of player, a certain quality of player. So, for instance, we've got Jan-Paul van Hecke, who, has been repeatedly linked with the club over the summer. We thought that he was going to come. We thought that it was done. Everything appeared to be done. And then, obviously, he then got a start, didn't he, for Brighton in the Cup game. Played really well. And Graham Potter decided that he wanted to keep him as part of the squad. And sometimes these things happen. And he was like a proper quality addition if we'd got him. He was Blackburn's Player of the Year last year in the Championship. He was outstanding for them. And that's the quality of player we wanted to bring in. Now, if that quality of player wasn't available to us after that move had fallen through, then they're right to not just go, right, okay,
Yeah.
well, we'll pick up like a third or fourth or fifth option, or somebody who's just nowhere near, just to fill a squad place. It's not that long to wait, really. I mean, had the case been that Ballard was going to be injured until, I don't know, January, February time, then yes, you would have needed somebody, but we've probably got enough. And you mentioned about changing shape. Cirkin, if he goes down, we might struggle, but I actually think, you've got Elise who can play left back. But at the minute, Cirkin's not even playing left back, he's playing left centre half, so you've got his backups there. Danny Bart's backup is Bailey Wright. You've got then Luke O'Nien who can play right centre half. If he went down for whatever reason, you could just shift to a back four, or you could put Wright there. So we have got options, and it's not ideal. You would love, ideally, to have a 23, 25 man squad with 2 absolutely quality players in every position, but I think it's a little bit unrealistic.
They don't exist at this level, and especially for a team who's literally just been promoted out of League One as well. And I think in terms of like this new version of Sunderland, you are quite right. If we are desperate for a player, we're not just going to go out and sign a Callum McFadzean, and we're not going to go and sign a Danny Graham just to have numbers on the bench when, by manager's admission, people like Alex Neil, when he just basically looks at the bench and he doesn't feel that there was quality there to bring on. So I think you are right in that respect. Obviously, we've still got the likes of Diaku to come back from injury. This new boy from Man United, again, there's been a lot of reports and rumours that he can play up front. And look, admittedly, I know absolutely nothing about him, but if he's gone for a fee of north of 30 million, he must have something about him. You would hope that he could come and obviously make a difference as well. But I mean, like I say, obviously, I think what reassures me more than anything is the start that we've had to the season. The first team remains largely the same. There was a lot of concern among some sections of the fan base that a lot of these players couldn't cut it at this level. But I think, as you've mentioned, Luke O'Nien, again, up for debate whether he's playing in or out of position, but he's been fantastic so far. Even look at the likes of Lyndon Gooch as well. Both of them are absolutely in the form of their life. So, like I say, I think there's room for encouragement, and obviously we're mentioning about strikers and things like that. I think the biggest encouragement is how we've got through this window and still kept a hold of Ross Stewart. Because maybe I'm missing something here. Obviously I'm over the moon that there's been like no sniff of interest, but like for somebody who scored 26 goals last season, he's got 5 goals already this season, and nobody's thought of gambling on him. I just find it a bit strange.
No, I'm with you. Yeah. It was a mate of mine's a Newcastle fan, and he said, "There's no way you'll keep a hold of him by the end of the window." And I went, "Well, ordinarily I would say, yeah, he should be in demand, but there's not even a sniff that anyone's been looking at him."
Absolutely weird.
Yeah, and I presume it's because he's still at this stage unproven at championship level. Yes, he's took to it like a duck to water, and we know how good he is. But if you're a club who are looking at him and you're probably thinking, well, he's probably going to cost us north of 10 million now. He would, he would cost in that region. They're probably looking at it and going, that's a lot of money to lay down on a player who hasn't even had a full season in the championship. Yeah. So I'm more worried about January, but I think we'll come to that when it happens. I guess, he is going to be in demand at some point, and he is going to be sold at some point. I think, if he continues to grow at the rate he is, he's going to be looked at by Premier League teams. If we aren't in the Premier League in a position to hold on to him, then it may be the case that happens. But we can't sort of worry too much about something that hasn't really happened yet. I'm with you. I can't believe nobody's looked at him. There were rumours about Rangers maybe looking at him, but I think that was just our fans. Because if you speak to anybody who's any Rangers fans, they'll tell you that they don't really have the money, even though they're in the Champions League. They don't really have the money to sign big money players. So, it's not really worth worrying about, I guess, in that sense. But other than that, we didn't really lose anybody in the window, did we? We lost Ellis Taylor to Hartlepool. Jack Diamond went to Lincoln and got man the match on his debut, I think, through the week. Other than that, nobody went anywhere. We signed in total 10 players, just counting up there, 10 players. So Dan Ballard, Leon Diaku's move got made permanent. We'll probably talk about him in a second. Jack Clark, Adji Elise, Alex Bass, Jewison Benetti, Abdullah Bar, Ellis Sims, Edouard Michou and Ahmad Diallo. So 10 additions, 2 out the door. Obviously, that's not including the lads who left at the end of the contracts last season. Pretty decent business overall, I would say, Craig. I don't know about you. I think we've brought the age of the squad down further. We've got a more athletic looking squad, I think. but a more inexperienced looking squad, and that's the gripe some people have, isn't it? Is that there are a portion of Sunderland fans who would have preferred to have seen another maybe 2 or 3 experienced players in the mix.
Yeah, well, I think if we touch on first about the players we've let go, I mean, obviously the likes of Will Grigg eventually left, Mick Eadie left, who, in fairness, he contributed nothing in his final 5 months because he was out injured. Obviously, Torben Hoffman returned back to his parent club, and the few others who really weren't offering us that much. Lee Burge was never going to be involved at this level. So I think in respect of the ones that we've let go, I know numbers-wise, yeah, it's very much more of the same, but I think the increase in quality is certainly there. So for me, retaining what we had was absolutely crucial. Like I say, tying Gooch down, keeping Bailey Wright as well. Those were the most important things. We can mention experience-wise. You've touched on Danny Bart already. He's somewhere between 29 and 30, I think, already. Bailey Wright's vastly experienced. O'Nine's been here. This is his 5th season. Lyndon Gooch has been here for, over 15 years. The experience is there, but I think, like I say, obviously, it would have been like for like for me in terms of bringing in somebody for Corey Evans, just to have somebody with a bit more miles on the clock. But I think maybe there is a bit of an underestimation of the experience that we have. I mean, even Stewart, to be fair, he's 26 years old. So there's certainly experienced and weathered footballers there, and it is certainly complemented as well now by these young lads who've come in. I mean, they've all got a decent track record in terms of loan moves that they've had. Some of them perhaps haven't worked out, but they've gone there. They've learnt the trade, so to speak, and now they've come in. They've found a club where they're starting to excel at. Somebody who I want to see a little bit more of, to be fair, you've mentioned Diagu, but I want to see a little bit more of Patrick Roberts. I know maybe the shape that we've been playing hasn't really afforded him a chance at the moment, especially with the form that we're in. But talk about somebody who's going to need to come in and feed off scraps. When he gets his chance, he's going to really need to take that opportunity and force his way back in, because he was a big player for us last season. I think he's got a lot to offer this season as well.
Yeah, and we've brought in players in his position,
Yeah.
Ahmad can play out wide. I think Mishu's more of a 10, but Roberts has been coming off the bench and playing as a 10. We've got Barr, who, from what I read, I don't know anything about him really other than what I've read in interviews he's done and stuff, but he is a central player who likes to get forward. He sounds a bit more like a number 10. It doesn't sound like a traditional centre mid. And then Jewison Benetti plays wide. So we've brought in a lot of wide players. We've not got rid of Leon Diaco. A lot of people felt that he might go. He's training because we've seen him in photos, even with Tony Mowbray this week in training. So he is training. He's not injured. But Diaco's not been seen since pre-season. And he's a player I thought we might have shed. I don't know about you. I don't know whether that was even looked into. But you've got to wonder from the club's perspective, did we want to sign him? I don't know how it worked, to be honest. We don't know anything really about that deal, whether we were obliged to pay the money or whether it was a case of we decided to do it. But Leon Diaco's been kept around. He's another attacking option. He has played sort of as a second striker at times in friendlies and even parts of last season later in games and stuff. So he's around still. The other ones that I thought might have went, possibly Jay Matete, because of the fact we've brought in a bunch of centre mids. He's just been kept around. I guess it goes back to what you said about Corey Evans, is that if Evans got injured, really, we don't have a holding player. I wouldn't say that Matete is really anywhere near as good as Evans right now, but he can play that position, I guess. Likewise, Elliot Embleton, another one who people speculated on, under Alex Neely, played pretty much exclusively centre mid and quite deep at times. And again, he's not really in that Corey Evans mould, but he can play there. So out of the ones I've just mentioned, there's a bunch of players who possibly could have left. Why do you think they maybe didn't? Do you think it's a case of they just were hanging on to them until January, maybe?
I think with Diagu, I honestly think if we could have, say, got through that deal without, say, signing him permanently at the end of last season, I think we would have. He's a funny player because he's obviously got talent. He's scored some great goals last season. And to be fair, he's just like a bull in a china shop, isn't he? When he comes on, he just causes so much hassle. And to be fair, I think if you look at a game like Norwich last weekend, that might have been a game where he might have come on and done something a little bit different, because we absolutely battered them left, right and centre for a large period of the game. And I think it maybe needed something of the unexpected to really sort of, throw them a little bit further. But like I say, obviously he's been hampered with injury throughout the course of pre-season, so whether that's put people off, coming in for him, I don't know. Matete, again, he's a funny one. He's been here since January, and ultimately, I still could not tell you what type of footballer he is. He's not really getting a lot of game time, but again, it's another who has to grasp at that opportunity. In fairness, when he came on against Sheffield United, I thought he looked excellent. He was only on for a short period.
Set the goal up, didn't he?
Exactly, that his role in that goal, he was really, really important. You look at the battle that he had down at Plymouth against Zach Kamara. He's a good player. There's definitely talent there. But I'm not sure whether the club would be in a position where they'd be looking to, say, sign somebody for a decent chunk of change like we did in January and then sort of writing him off already this time round. I think if he is to go out on loan or if he's to go anywhere, I don't think we'd be realistically eyeing to do anything until at least January.
Still very inexperienced though, isn't he?
Yeah.
How many first team games has he actually played? Probably had 20 odd at Fleetwood, 30 odd maybe, and then he's had like a handful here. Not really many starts, so and he is still very young, and people forget.
I think he would have been one of the first. Yeah, he would have been one of the first on the team sheet if we were still in League One, because obviously we would have needed to shed a lot of numbers then. But I guess really now the way of looking at it is because we've got so many players, we are fairly top heavy, especially on the wings. It's trying to keep them all happy, because you think obviously there's some who've renewed contracts, or there's some who've obviously made a permanent move here, and they're yet to really get a game. But like I say, obviously the way of looking at it is if we're doing as well as we can, we're probably not necessarily overperforming, getting more out of the players, but maybe we're performing a little bit higher than the fans perhaps thought we would be at this stage of the season. You can't really drop anybody just yet.
That's it. That's literally it. If we were losing games and playing crap, then there would be more of a call to change the shape of the team, change the tactics, bring players out and put players in. Like, as much as I really want to see Patrick Roberts in the team, I'm sat there thinking, well, who do you take out, Yeah. All right, Ellis Sims has gone off the boil slightly the last few games, but he's not playing badly. He's just not hitting the back of the net. What do you do? Do you change your shape of your team to bring him in? I don't think you do. I think at the minute it's just difficult.
Yeah, I think with Sims, he still looks a little short of fitness, to be fair, but even against Rotherham, where granted, I think he was blowing smoke after at least an hour or so, but he was clever enough to drag his marker away for the third goal where Jack Clark just sort of rolls through. If you look back, or if anybody's listening looks back at that now, you just watch how clever he was just to drag one out, and it just opened the door for Jack Clark. So again, I think with players like him as well, you forget just how young he is, because you look at him, you look at the build of him, the physicality, you think he's like a grown man, but he's only 20, 21. So he's got a lot of time to come good, so to speak. I mean, he's had an electric start. I'm certain he'll score goals at this level, but just more match fitness, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough. I think probably say that Sunderland's transfer window in general was decent. I'm certainly not complaining. I'm glad we've brought the age of the squad down. I'm glad we've added young players in pretty much every position. I mean, it seems that other fans are along the same lines. I did stick a quick poll up on Twitter asking people, are you overall happy with Sunderland's transfer business this summer? 90% of the voters said yes. Only 10% said no. I would imagine if you spoke to the people in the 10%, they'd probably say, I wish we'd got everything we've just said, wish we'd maybe got another centre-half, maybe got another full-back perhaps, another striker. But I think every manager or every sporting director in football, if you spoke to them today, would be sat there going, well, I think we could do with maybe one. And they all want a little bit more. They're never completely satisfied. So that's just normal. But I would like to say that, some of the business we've done in this window has been pretty impressive. Like, I think Edouard Michou is a really good signing. He's the type of player that I think most clubs in this league would actually quite like to have, but maybe don't have the bottle, I guess if it's the right word, to take a gamble on a lad of 18, 19 who's physically very small.
He looks 10.
Clearly has a lot of ability.
He looks like a small boy.
Yeah, but when you consider his pedigree, he's good, obviously. And it does take a brave manager and a brave football club to take that calculated risk on him, because if he is any good, we're going to have a serious player on our hands.
Absolutely.
And that's perhaps the most intriguing bit of business for me. I think Ahmad, we haven't really talked a lot about him because we don't know a great deal about him. But somebody who cost nearly 40 million quid can't be bad. I know it's Manchester United and I know they throw money around willy-nilly, but I just think that this kid is obviously waiting for his big opportunity. And as we've proven over the last year or so, we are the football club where these players can come and prove themselves and develop and grow and become quality footballers. And I think he's going to be a secret weapon for us this year, because I've watched him play a few times for Rangers, and he has got something. He's very two-footed. He's very quick. He's very direct. So I'm pretty excited about that one. Sims, I said at the time, Everton letting go of a striker when they didn't have a striker just seemed balmy to me. And he hit the ground running, didn't he, with them goals? And like you said, Craig, I'm sure he's going to be fine. Bar and Benetti, I think, are probably more for the latter end of the season, maybe even next season, you know. We've still got to sign lads who we want to develop ourselves, and they'll probably benefit more from just being around the club, getting the odd game off the bench here and there, just sort of training in that elite environment with better players and stuff, because they are still very raw and young. But I mean, you've got to take a risk every so often on young kids. And Benetti in particular, though, he's going to want to be playing games because he's got the World Cup coming up. He's going to be playing for Costa Rica. So, again, another interesting one. Alex Bass, I don't think we'll see at all unless Patterson gets injured. Elise, another one like probably Benetti and Barr, is probably one for sort of next year. Looks very raw, but in the event that anything happens to Dennis Sirkin, you know, he's going to be ready to come straight in. He's probably benefited from being around the team the last couple of months, just sort of bedding in and, again, being in a first-team environment, which he hasn't had in his career so far. And then the rest, well, Ballard we spoke plenty about, Diaco we spoke plenty about, Jack Clark looks to be at this stage of the season, one of the best signings anyone's made in the Championship so far, I would say.
One of the best permanent signings we've made in a long time, to be fair. There wasn't that much of an outcry to bring him back. Again, maybe there was games where he was slightly hit and miss, maybe better off coming off the bench. But you look at that performance against Rotherham the other day. I think every game he's been involved with so far, he's been really good. But it was like different class. That was one of those games where it was almost like you were playing lower league opposition. You were playing a team below. He just had absolute freedom down that side. And every time he got the ball in the second half, you thought, we're going to score you. He's honestly different class. Yeah.
So overall, me and you were both happy, yeah?
I would certainly say so, yeah. Obviously, you mentioned the loan lads. I think a lot of cause for encouragement because Speakman and Harvey have both worked the market well so far. And look, I think, you know, based on what we've had so far in the opening 7 games, I think our brighter and better days are ahead of us, certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, thanks very much, everyone, for joining us. We've got another podcast with Chris ahead of Monday's game, so make sure you check that out. Thanks for joining us. Catch you later.